Hello, everybody. Welcome to God Think TV. I feel so much better this week. I had a person in our discipleship school pray for me last night, actually, and I woke up feeling 1,000 times better, way more like myself. I had all this energy, so I am so grateful for that. I'm still a little congested, but anyway. Pastor Bob has an awesome episode today where he's talking about his trip in Israel. He goes way more in depth about his encounters with God and with people and the things that the Lord was speaking to him and showing to him. And it's very interesting, and I hope you guys will stick around to hear it all.
All right, we're back today. Hey, last week I spoke to you out of a couple of scriptures out of Corinthians and Apostle Paul talking about the simplicity of Christ and not to be so quickly removed from it. And also Micah, we talked out of Micah 6:8, I believe we talked out of there, and how, to do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with our God. It was that kind of thing. And I talked about Israel, my trip to Israel. And it was really interesting. But today, I want to continue my talk, and it's a very simple talk, actually, because I want to talk to you. I'm calling today the rest of the story, because I want to talk to you about some of the other stuff that happened that really affected my life, affected my soul in Israel. So, without further ado, I want to talk to you about this. Last week, we talked about the trip and how intensely religious and oppressively religious I found the culture to be there, and how it lacked a simplicity, how it was so confusing, and there was a lot of mixture and weirdness that went on. Today, I do want to share the rest of the story, and I want to share the great part of the rest of the story. So I want to go through a couple of things that we were exposed to as a group there, and I want to just share it with you. And so the first thing was my experience with the Messianic Jews. One of the primary reasons we went there was to meet with several groups of Messianic Jews that are Jews that love Jesus, saved, and walking with him. And what I wanted to say was what happened with them. What happened with me with them. They are a simple people, devoted to other people coming to Jesus. There was such a sincerity with them, and laying down of their lives. It was so opposite of the rest of the religious culture there that was oppressive and running after, against people. These people, many of them have given up everything. Many of them have moved from other countries there just to love on the people of Israel and to give them the compassion and love of Christ. And it was so impressive to me, their love for worship, their love for the prophetic, their love for people around them. And by the way, just to put this in perspective, they are the tiniest fraction of the people in that country. I mean, so tiny an amount. I mean, they're not a blip on the radar, okay? And yet they're so committed to the work of the ministry that really involves touching people's lives there. And it's like one person at a time. And that affected me so much, that their dedication. And it really inspired me, and for me personally, and maybe for you hearing this, about your dedication to the Lord and to walking with Him and to helping other people to see Him, to experience Him, not just blah 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 talk about Him, but actually experience the love of Christ through them. They actually do this, which was so impressive to me. I guess it took me by surprise. I really didn't expect that of these folks. But they're so genuine. There are people with little children. Like I said, they've given up a lot. Like some of them have to homeschool their kids because they're not really accepted in the regular schools and things like that. And the children are loving and kind, and they're immersed in this Israeli culture, and yet they're total Christian. They're Jesus lovers, and that just like I said, it surprised me, and it inspired me personally. The next thing I experienced, which I want to share with you, is our tour guide. I'm not going to give names, but yeah, he was a great once again, a Jesus-loving guy, Israeli, lives in a kibbutz, but so completely sold out for the Lord, so intensely caring about Jesus. And when he'd bring us to places, he didn't just show you a place, but he would also tell you what it meant to him, what it meant to his family, to his heritage, to what it meant to his heart, how it inspired him to walk with Jesus more. And he could bring in, because he has this Israeli background, he's lived there his whole life as a Jew, and how he came to Jesus and how he walks with him every day. And his take on the Bible, some things I agree with, some things maybe not, but just the sincerity, once again, of his care for the people in Israel. And his to me, it was just a fresh look at how people have to be in a place like that, and just like I said, the insight he brings to the religion there, but also to Jesus's walk there, and to Jesus's purpose to the people there. And it was so intensely personal once again, which I just loved. I just completely loved. So today, like I said, I'm just taking time just to share the other side of the story, the rest of the story that really made a difference to me, and kind of these things kind of surprised me, to be very honest with you. They took me by surprise most of the time, actually. Then this was really, really special. We visited a place, in a very dangerous place, by the way. The person we got to speak to is a Jew. He actually established a place for children who have been traumatized by terrorism. Matter of fact, he himself was involved in a shooting where he was shot. His son, at a very young age, was shot in the head, almost died through this process. And you would think that there would be just such a hate and everything there. And this man, who's Jewish, right? I mean, we went to a synagogue with him. He's, that kind of thing. He came out of that experience of being shot, of being his own kid, almost seeing his kid die in front of him. It missed his brain, a portion of his brain by a centimeter. I mean, it was very close. He comes out of that 15 years ago, and he begins a school for ministering to people who are traumatized by war, by terrorism. We got the privilege, just the honor. My heart just is, I can't tell you. It's so full just thinking of it, because I can still see the faces. I can see these little children's faces. He's got this school, and they do regular, K through 12 or whatever it is. But in the process, they also do therapy. They do music therapy, horse and animal raising therapy, and they have special therapists there that help the children walk through life. And it grew from his experience to when we went to visit the other day. There are 2,000 children there. It's the government has, basically partnered with him and helped provide, and people from all over the world, pay to help these children. And your heart is so full watching these kids. You would never know that they were traumatized. It doesn't look like it, because of the safe place he's made for them, because of the love that he's showing these kids. And, it was just a wonderful thing. And we had the opportunity for him to bring us to to Shiloh, a place near his school, where, Samuel the prophet was, and where the Ark of God was from the Old Testament. And we got to sit there and listen to him tell us about the place from a Jewish perspective. And it was so great. And we got to pray together with him, and it was spectacular. But another just like heart-gripping, intensely passionate person in an intensely hostile area, doing God's work, which is just incredible to me. The next thing, by the way, a couple of scriptures. so we don't just go off on total Bob, but Psalms 127, verse 3, talks about children being the heritage of the Lord. And that was something that really struck me when we were there, that these kids, like, they really are God's heritage. They belong to him. And the love there, it's hard to explain. And of course in Luke 18, the Lord, he speaks about let the little children come to me. Don't prevent them. Don't stop. And you just felt that there. You felt this intense love and this intense, inclusiveness for these kids. And it's like they had a place. And like I said, I know it's kind of an emotional thing, but I'm sharing with you today. It's not a big old preachy thing, but they affected my soul. They affected my life. They affected the way I looked at people. And actually, it affects quite a bit how I look at Jewish people there. The next thing was my experience with the Arabs, which is really interesting. I made a really good Arab friend when I was there, which was really crazy, our bus driver. And he's just a great guy. And we got to spend some time together. We're talking. He tells me about his family, his wife, who's a teacher, and 3 little girls he has. And it struck me when I was there, because, sometimes when you're cloistered away far from those kinds of situations, and you hear about places like Israel and some of the other places in the Mideast with all the killing and the terrorism and this and that, you forget that there's actually people there. People of all types, of all sizes, of all shapes, of all beliefs. And they're people that God died for. The Arabs do have a very similar heritage to Christians and to, Jewish people, since they came from Abraham also, and they have special promises to them also. And we forget that sometimes. We can get kind of like tunnel vision, I guess the best way to say it. But this gentleman, he was so honoring and so very kind, very respectful. I love the guy. I thought he was great. I took selfies with him and just enjoyed myself with him. I may have enjoyed myself with him more than any other Jewish person I met, to be very honest with you. I don't know. It's kind of strange, but that's the truth. Because he seemed like he had integrity, and he was a solid guy, hardworking, cared about his family, cared about people, and very respectful. And I think, well, Jesus died for him too, just like he died for you and for me. And he made an impression on me. And the last thing I wanted to share with you is my experience with Jesus. These are kind of strange in so many ways. When I was flying there, it's about a 12, 13-hour flight there, up in front of you on the, in a little screen you have like movies and things like that. They also show the path of the plane and where you're at the time. And we'd been into the flight for 10 hours or more, and it was dark. Everybody's asleep except me, because I don't sleep on planes. But I turned on the thing and I'm looking at the plane. And when the plane came off of Europe and hit the Mediterranean. Now I know this is going to sound funny for you guys out there. All of a sudden, my spirit felt this crazy, weird drawing. It was like it was being pulled out of my body. It's the best way I can explain it. Drawing toward Israel. I mean, I didn't have any feelings at all up to then, to be honest with you. And the entire time we were over the Mediterranean, because I watched the plane go over, the hour or two, whatever is flying over that, the same intense drawing was happening. It was the weirdest thing. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is. I don't have any scriptural basis for it. I don't know what that was, but I know what that is. And like I said, it was very prophetic feeling in many ways, if you want to call it a feeling. And as soon as we hit the airspace in Israel, it ended. It was like, oh, we're here. And it was a strange thing. The second thing that happened to me with Jesus, and there were several me and Jesus moments, actually occurred one night. We were doing a worship time at a house of prayer. It's a pretty spectacular house of prayer. It overlooks the city and the old city. I mean, you can see the Dome of the Rock, and if you can imagine, it's nighttime and things are lit up there, and there's a giant glass window there, and we're just looking over the city, and we're doing a whole worship time. There's some people joining us, and it was tremendous, presence of the Lord and all. And one of my favorite young spiritual daughters invites me up to pray for the city. And I'm like, okay, are you sure? And I jump up there. And as soon as I looked out over the city, all I can tell you is I was seeing Papa's heart toward the people, not the city, not the big, bright, shiny gold dome of the rock or the walls of old Jerusalem and all that, but the people. And instantly, I felt the Father's heart toward those people there, and not just the Jewish people, which was really interesting to me. And it was instantaneous. I mean, I started to, she asked me to pray, and I started to pray, and I started to weep over the city. It was weird. I wasn't expecting. Up till then, I was pretty carnaled out. You know what I'm saying? I was tired, that kind of thing. And but it was pretty instantaneous, and prophesied over the city, and it wasn't anything spectacular for anybody else, I don't think. But from my heart and for seeing Jesus's love toward those people, it was really, really special. And so those were, and I can go on, there were dozens of other experiences, but those are the few that that come to my mind now, just sitting here talking to you. And I just want to encourage you that you have a really loving God, loving Jesus. He cares about your life, much like those people there in Israel, the Messianic Jews that care for people's lives. I want to just say today, prophetically to you, that God, He loves you. He cares about your life. He cares about the balance of your life and what you're going to do with it. And He really wants to see the best for your life. And I want you to hear that. Because there's a lot of turmoil that's going on in the world and around, and fears and things like that. And then there's God. And I want you to be introduced to this very intimate, personal God. And you don't have to go to Israel to do that. You can do that right there, right where you're at. This Jesus who died for you, who loved you, was buried and raised for you, that He's still there today for you. And you can have Him in your heart too if you don't know Him today. And He can direct your life in such a special way, and that you make a difference in other people's lives, that you have the love of the Father toward people. That's what I have for you today. Pretty simple, but I just wanted to share my heart. So God bless you all. Love you. See you later.
I'm so glad we got to hear a lot more about the trip to Israel. The last episode just wasn't enough, so I'm super glad that Pastor Bob took some time to dive deep into all the things that happened for him while he was in Israel. But something that God kind of was showing me while I was listening behind camera was you don't have to go to Israel to kind of look at people in a new way. I'll fly to Oklahoma and feel, those people from the South are a lot different than us in California, that's for sure, but it's a different people, but they're still Americans, but you get a whole different perspective. But you could go to a different part of town. You can go hang out with a different group of people and still see that same heart that Pastor Bob was talking about. You don't need to necessarily go to a foreign country or go on a missions trip to, Mexico or something like that. You really, God has that same heart for all people, and I felt like He wanted me to share that that it's all over, not just somewhere special like that. So anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and give it a like, comment, feel free to subscribe, and we have a prayer request form in our description box. And if you have any sort of prayer for anything at all, please feel free to write in there. And if you want to drop your email address and all that in there as well, somebody can stay in contact with you if that's what you'd like. In any case, I can't wait to talk to you guys next week.